you guys can talk it over.
I figured it out.
Good job.
Wasn't it? I was like, what the hell? Like, so yeah, it was I'm like, where the hell is this thing? Meetings. And then I like had to keep going back to the email. I'm like, page 4? That doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
But luckily I got on it early enough to do it. Was able to pull up my old notes. I typically go off script a little bit.
That's okay. Yeah. As long as like those key points of the material are covered and gone over, then that's giving them what they need. And then they love like a personal.
So what I typically do is I go through a bunch of real life transactions and talk about how we would negotiate that.
Awesome.
Based off of the circumstances that were around that transaction.
Awesome.
So,
yeah, that's great.
I think they get more value out of that than some of the scenarios that are in this class. So
yeah. Well, and that's one of the great things about doing this live and interactive and with like our people versus like watching pre-recorded videos is our market's constantly changing, so you're able to kind of address what we're dealing with. I'm like a tickle in my throat.
Yeah, so all right, so they're okay. I'm assuming everyone just comes on at one. I don't know how big is the class typically?
It's been about 14 to 20 people typically.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yesterday was a little bit smaller, I think maybe just first week back. We took family reunion off, and so it's kind of had to like get people back in the like groove of come back. But yeah, I'll stay on, let people in for a few minutes and do like their accountability, so you can skip over that part, and then I'll introduce you and then let you take it away.
Okay. It looks like you got, yeah, there we go.
Yeah. And once I finish letting people on before I get off, I will turn on like the doorbell sound so that you know when someone's in the waiting room that you need to let in. Debbie, I want to be where you are. Are you out by a pool?
Yes, I'm in Indio, California.
Oh, I'm jealous.
So I won't be doing a whole lot of prospecting, but I did bring note cards and stuff. So
perfect.
And some addresses.
Good.
I don't know. Are any of my team members on these?
No. Not usually, I don't think.
Okay.
They should be. You'll have to kick their butt.
I agree. I can't get them to go to anything.
Chelsea, I got your email, but I've been in meetings like all morning, so I will respond to you this afternoon.
Oh, no problem.
I figured it wasn't like emergency. Mark. You're not Brooke and Brady.
Yeah, I am not having a good week. My computer just all of a sudden shut down and won't restart. And
oh no.
Yeah, kind of having a feeling that it is the hard drive because it's saying it won't boot. So I had to go from my phone.
Well, that's totally fine on our end. We'll give people another minute and then we'll start our accountability.
Okay, I'm gonna mute.
The sun's like killing me. Not that I'm complaining about sun.
I was gonna say,
I just moved to be in the sun.
It's just blinding me, that's all. All right, well, let's start our accountability. We'll go through everyone real quick and go over how many contacts you've made, if you've gone on any appointments, and then anything else you want to quickly add before we jump into our class. Steph, you want to get us started?
Sure. So I went and did my second video, I guess my second business that I'm featuring in my new video series. So I was able to make 11 new contacts today. Just it was kind of actually worked out really perfect. I did some video footage there. So I asked them, just made sure they were okay if they were in my footage, which I was able then to talk real estate with them. So that worked out really well. And then I did 4 note cards.
That's amazing. Great job. Abby?
I have not been as productive. We kind of had some family stuff going on, but I added 3 new contacts over the last few days, and I actually had 2 appointments, and one of them went really well. They're like friends of my boyfriend's, and he's works at the recruiter's office, so he's trying to do a VA loan and buy a house in Eugene. I was like, I can help you there. And the other one I'm really nervous about. She's talked to another realtor already who also works for KW. But has a lot of really specific things that she wants and not necessarily a budget that will probably accommodate all those things. So I'm like pushing and hoping that she chooses me, but in the back of my mind, sort of hoping that she doesn't, because I don't really want to disappoint her. But so that's pretty much all I've done. But my 2 meetings felt like I went really well. I went with I don't know her, so it was kind of good practice for me to go through like the buyer lead form that we did, and then like try to make my own like buyer presentation pamphlet and figure that out yesterday. So I spent like my whole day freaking out about it, and then it went super well. So
Good. Yeah, it's great practice.
And she took a phone call and was like, "Oh yeah, hold on, I'm meeting with the realtor right now." And I was like, "That's me. I'm the realtor."
Yeah. Awesome. Great job. Debbie?
well, yesterday was travel day, and today I haven't done anything yet. So I'm on vacation, but I brought note cards and a list of people I'm going to send them to. So that's my
Great job.
goal while I'm here, is note cards and then some phone calls to my sphere.
Good job. It's easy to do while you get a suntan.
Yeah.
Tanaya?
Hi there. I've made 6 contacts this week. I'm at the end of the escrow process with my first buyer, and so I'm kind of going back and like figuring out command. So I'm finally figuring out how to get everything in there. I had 2 meetings, one with a finance person and one with a photographer, and both went well. And my business cards finally came in, so I'm getting ready to do some postcards and mail outs starting today and tomorrow.
Awesome. Great job. Awesome. Chelsea?
I did the Paragon training today, the hour-long training class, and completed that, and 5 note cards, and I have 8 new Instagram engagements. But other than that, I don't have any appointments set for the week, just my normal clients that I've been working with and checking the RMLS religiously every day. So hoping something will come up for them eventually.
Good job. Jeff?
thought you were gonna go.
Oh, you want me to talk?
Yeah.
I thought
She
she
said
had it. We're still figuring it out. I thought she.
Either one.
Still figuring it
No,
out.
we sent, Zoe did a fantastic job yesterday with a lot of really great handwritten notes, and our new business cards came in, and we got those in there. And I think it was 11.
11.
No, not 11 note cards. So because we were a little bit behind, we have 11 people into command with notes. We've got Tom's approval on yard signs, which we're excited about. And Facebook is going pretty well for us, but Zoe has that, I think.
We're just increasing our page likes every single day. Our people reached last 30 days were 187. Post engagements 80. Our page likes up are into the 40s now. So I think we're kind of chugging along on that piece as well. And we have, I think we posted something every day last week. So we're kind of ramping up our social posts to kind of catch more attention, and people are sharing them, which is always so nice.
Yeah, awesome. Great job. Annie, anything you want to add?
I sent out my first newsletter today, so that was kind of exciting. I had a lot of positive response from mostly just friends and family, but I'm glad to get that out there. There was a girl at my meeting today. She offered an open house. I tried to get it, but unfortunately I was too late. So I'll be the backup if the other two people can't do it. I asked to shadow one just to get some experience. So that's where I'm at right now.
Excellent. Great job. Yeah, shadowing is a great idea before you go out on your own. That way you know what to expect and where you put your signs and all that fun stuff.
Definitely.
Jenny?
Hello, I have 8 new contacts. I have an open house on Sunday. And I had a meeting this week for anybody, since you were talking about your Facebook page, with Ryan Jacobson from Tycor Title. If you guys want to have it's called a social media audit, really helpful. So if any of you guys want to do that, he's with Tycor, Ryan Jacobson. And
awesome.
I'm still doing my farm send outs.
Excellent. Great job. Karen?
Hi there. I met yesterday with a lady that she's selling and going to buy. She decided she's going to sell to a friend who used to be a realtor and now she flips houses. So they've got some kind of deal going with that. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. But I met with her to help her connect with somebody to do a short-term rental while we look for another house for her here. And I've been getting, a few calls on my coming soon listing. It's almost scary to think when that goes active, how many people are gonna stampede. But yeah, that's going along well. I'm really trying to not pre-sell it, but make sure that my marketing is, tuned in.
Yeah, for
sure. Mm-hmm. I sent out 6 cards, I think. So.
Good job. And then last but not least, Tamara.
Hi there. We're running some errands, so there's going to be some background noise. I hopefully can stay on for the whole call. I've been updating my command, getting my deal in there, and figuring all that out today, and updating a couple of contacts, adding one of my contacts in, and just trying to make sure I'm getting everything done right for my deal that I've got going.
Awesome. Great job. Perfect. Okay. Well, that is everyone. Just as a reminder, don't forget we are having the DISC class today after this class. So if you are able to stay on at 4, that's going to be amazing. I did planned out that class because we had gotten some people that were interested in what the DISC was. It's the term we throw around all the time. And so she's going to dive pretty deep into what it is, how to understand it, what you are, and then like how to identify what someone else is. And so that way you can, meet your client's needs and speak a different language. So that will be after this and will be great. Hey, Mara. Yep.
Is that an hour?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, all right, so today we have Matthew, who was born and raised in Northwest Portland. He was a certified financial planner for 12 years, and after selling his practice in 2011, he chose real estate as his second career. In 2017, he launched the Property Brokers Group. This servant leader-based team was created to make its team members' businesses better. The team grew quickly and currently has 17 team members, and they're licensed to do business in Oregon and Washington. So super lucky to have Matt today. I think you guys are going to learn a ton, and he's going to go through some really relevant real life experiences and examples for you as well.
And I totally dressed down today, and then I realized that I had a class, so I apologize in advance. I got my hoodie on and stuff, but I do have a polo underneath it. But normally, pre-COVID, I was usually in a suit every day. So
Oregon born.
I know. Anyways, this is my favorite class, so I am super excited to be able to go through this with you all. It is something that as the lead of a fairly large team, I'm gonna mute. I was getting feedback, sorry there. But as a team lead of a fairly large team, I do a lot of negotiations on behalf of my team members. So I get the phone calls quite a bit on how to deal with situations. So it's something that I get to do quite a bit. I have my own very unique negotiation style. Everything from being super friendly and nice and giving anything and everything to ghosting and everything in between. So it just really matters on the situation that you're put in and who has the stronger position on how you have to deal with the negotiations that you're dealing with. So with that being said, so she kind of gave you my intro. Yeah, I'm born and raised here, financial background, started a really different type of team back in 2017, grew very fast. We've actually been the highest company dollar contributor in our market center for the last 2 years. I'm an approved expansion team leader, and we're looking to probably expand into Vancouver here shortly, along with the rest of Oregon. So you might see some of our team at some of the different market centers in the next year or two. So, not sure where everyone's from. Is anyone here from Sunset Corridor? Jenny? Anyone else? No. Okay. Whereabouts are we? Are we from all the rest? A lot of Southern Oregon, Eugene.
We're in Eugene.
Eugene. Okay.
Salem.
Okay.
Bend.
Bend. You say Bend?
Yeah, Bend. Central Oregon.
Are you in the network still, or are you or out of the Bend Market Center?
I don't know. What do you mean?
I didn't know that we were doing these. I didn't know Bend was in our network.
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
We usually have 2 other people from Bend on the class, Chelsea and Alicia.
I'm also Bend.
Also Bend. Okay.
I'm not Bend, but I'm Tri-Cities, Washington to Eugene.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, Chelsea.
Well, good. All right. Well, that's good. The good news is that the market is pretty similar in almost every single city that is on the call. So we will go through some real life scenarios. I'll try to go through, the script is actually, or the actual course is pretty good. So we'll go through that. But then I'll go through some recent transactions and some of the things that we did in order to either secure the deal, or if we were on the listing side, how we negotiated back with the other people. So we'll go through some real life transactions. Does that sound good? Okay. Any questions for me on anything? I'm an open book. No? All right, silent. Okay, that's fine. This is interesting. I've not done this on Zoom before, so hopefully it translates well. I like teaching in person, of course. I have gotten used to doing a lot of things on Zoom, just from, as I'm assuming all of you have too. If you've been in here for more than a week, you've learned how to do more of your business online. There are some pluses to it. It's less commuting, it's less traveling. You can do buyer consults and listing consults via Zoom without having to, travel back and forth each way. So there is some benefits to it. All right, so let's see where we start here. I don't do any of your accountability or tracking or anything like that. Is that correct? Okay. And then we don't break for you guys doing individual calls anymore. Is that correct? Oh, okay. Are you okay with me not doing that? Or do you want to have the break to do the calls? Okay. I've never had anyone say we must do our calls. I'll let you guys do it afterwards. So you've already reported out. So do you report your numbers back? Did you do that already while I was, okay.
Went through and we did our numbers.
Okay. So then let me get I'm going to shrink this. Get the chat window up. Okay, awesome. And then I'm going to share my screen. And you can all see that? Okay. All right, so getting your head in the game. I think that's where we should start. Okay, so in the 2014 NAR study of buyers and sellers, negotiations ranked second on the list of what buyers most wanted from their agent and ranked sixth on the list in what sellers wanted most from their agent, which I think is interesting that sellers ranked it lower, but that's what they said. And then there's actually two sets of negotiations, and this is where, especially in this market, you don't want to come in hard on a negotiation because you're trying, at least from a buyer standpoint, just to get under contract. Is anyone having difficulty getting under contract? Or is anyone actively working with buyers right now, or had the experience of trying to write offers at this point? It's crazy. So this is where a lot of the negotiations that you need to be having right now aren't with the listing agent or aren't with the sellers. The negotiations you need to be having if you're working with buyers is you need to negotiate with your buyers and kind of educate them on what the market is currently like and let them know what a win is. A win isn't necessarily getting the best price and terms that you can get. A win right now is getting under contract. There are so many buyers for every single listing that comes on the market. Let's see, that's going to drive me nuts. I don't know how to get my chat window open at the same time. Is that because I'm sharing my screen? Anyone? Let's go like this. Sorry, you guys are typing, which is sending me flags that someone's talking, but I can't get my screen and you and the chat all open at the same time. So sorry for being distracted there. But really, that's where I try to counsel my agents on my team that really they should be having the conversation with their buyers that a proper negotiation is getting them under contract. And so that's where our effort really needs to be, is how do we work with the listing agents to try to give our clients a leg up if we're representing the buyers. Is there anything that anyone is doing currently that they're having success with? This is interactive, you guys. I can only see about 5 of you at a time. And so if you're shaking your heads or anything, you need to actually speak in order for you to pop up on my screen.
I know that buyers are doing shortened inspection periods or offering that to sellers.
Mm-hmm. Karen, good job. Call the listing agent and start a dialogue. Super important. Now, do you think that you're the only buyer's agent calling listing agents and starting a dialogue? No. So sometimes listing agents might not pick up their phone because they're literally getting flooded with phone calls the second that a listing hits the market. But it is still vitally important that you try to connect with them and try to communicate with them. Sending over an offer blindly without communicating first is a likely way of not getting the offer accepted.
Right.
So those are all parts of the negotiation, is actually just communicating before sending the offer. Once you do get the offer under contract, you have a second round of negotiations, and that's during the inspection period. So that's when the repairs come up. What's been happening recently is buyers agents are being super friendly and super nice during the trying to get under contract phase, and then they were becoming really aggressive on the inspection period. Well, that worked about 3 or 4 months ago. Listing agents got smart to that and started to require other things inside of the contracts in order to get that offer moved up to the top of the list. What are some, or does anyone have any things besides listing agent, or besides calling the listing agents to get under contract or to get their offer moved up to the top of the list? Anyone?
Cash only offers?
Cash only offers. If you don't have cash only, are there any other things that we can do?
I would say on the listing that I just sold in January, with the offers that we got, they had an offer all the way up to 71,000 over asking. It was,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was contingent on another home, so they chose against that. But I mean, we had 5 offers over asking, and I put like a 2.5 day time limit on it, basically. And for them, the offer they chose, although it wasn't the highest, it was not even the 3rd highest. It was because of the and this was just solely how they felt about it, but it was because of the earnest money that was put forth, and it was a very, very, very high earnest money number. And I know Mara had I had been coached by Mara, and we talked about it a little bit on that, and I know like her opinion was that it's really hard to actually like recoup that money if that is something. But just from my seller's point of view, to them, with their knowledge, even though I informed them of that, they still felt really comfortable and just felt like these people really wanted their house and they weren't going to back out just because they were willing to put over $20,000 in earnest money down. So that won their offer for them.
It's interesting to hear. Yeah, I would not consider earnest money to be a really good negotiating thing, exactly for what was said to you. It is almost impossible from a seller standpoint to retain the earnest money. It does happen, but it is not a normal thing. So high dollar amounts of earnest money to me doesn't really do anything, but we do this every day and our clients don't. And so even something that seems trivial to us might, as you said, it won the deal for those buyers. So you never know how someone's going to react to it. Anything else anyone else is doing?
I've heard a lot of people talk about getting fully approved ahead of time so that it's, as close to being as good as cash as possible.
Okay, that's going to be helpful too. And so the important part on that is the lender would want to call the listing agent to explain that the client has been. Again, probably 2 months ago, listing agents were more, this is the weirdest market that we've been in. And I'd say a couple months ago, listing agents were able to receive those calls, but it has gone to an extreme where literally the phone doesn't stop ringing the second that something hits the market, until it goes pending. Yeah, so you have email to bomb video, great. Okay, flexible closing dates, rent, lease back. Yeah, lots of people are offering rent, lease back. We're seeing appraisal waivers, repair waivers, and a few other tricks there. So, and then there's like escalation clauses and other things like that if they're allowed. And we're going to go through some of those things today too. So, let me see what we got. Okay, so negotiations. Are you guys seeing the chat screen when I'm sharing the screen, or are you seeing the PowerPoint?
We can see both.
Are you seeing my chat screen or your chat screen? Because my chat screen is
I can see my own as they pop up.
Huh?
I can see my own. They pop up from the bottom as people send in chats. Mine, not yours.
Okay, so you don't see my chat screen covering up part of the PowerPoint. Awesome. Okay. All right.
Matt,
so
I'm pretty sure you might be able to drag your chat screen to another section.
Yeah. I have it dragged to the bottom left-hand corner. I got you guys on the right side and then the screen. I usually can get it so the screen will be on one side, but I think once I share screen and get the chat going, it doesn't like it. So, okay, so on making it happen negotiations, we have the buyer negotiating with the buyer agent, and then the seller negotiating with the listing agent, and then the buyer agent negotiating with the listing agent. All of those things happen in a transaction. So you obviously don't get to negotiate with the other party's client. That's a big no-no. I had a client today. Well, no, I didn't have a client. I had a buyer today on one of my listings calling me directly. And so I didn't take the call. Once I found out who it was, I blocked the call and let the agent know that I was blocking them so I wouldn't receive any more text messages or phone calls from them, so they could stop. You guys know that you are not allowed to talk to someone else's client, correct? Good. It's a big no-no. Don't do it. All right, so I'm going to pull up a video. I'm moving along pretty fast. I mentioned before, most of the negotiations that we have to be doing right now are not between us and the listing agent, or as the listing agent and the buyer's agent. Most of the negotiations are between us and our own clients, trying to negotiate with them on how to write a successful offer. And also between us and the listing, or in our sellers, if we're the listing agent. That's when we are more negotiating with the other side. But it's weird because you're not really negotiating, you're almost like hand picking and selecting off of like a fixed term. So there's no real back and forth right now on negotiations. Instructor, fun activity. Where am I supposed to call on you one at a time and throw common negotiation issues? Okay. All right. I'm going to pull up the video and see. I had a differing opinion on this video last year than I do now. Okay. And I believe.
Hi, I'm Josh Anderson from Nashville, Tennessee. I've been with Keller Williams since 2006. 2014, we did about 200 transactions for about $60 million. I grew up on a farm, so I've always seen my dad negotiating land and cows and horses. Being the youngest of four, and I'm trading and negotiating with my brothers all growing up. So I've kind of done it all the time. Some people are certainly gravitate toward it and are naturally better at it than others. But I think that negotiation can definitely be learned. I think there's a lot of skills that go into being a great negotiator. I think it's learning your client. Instead of kind of assuming that you know what's important to them, really asking a lot of questions and letting them tell you what they need or want, and then speaking to the other agent and finding out what's most important to their client. And there's some agents that just don't give any. When I have an agent that I'm dealing with that's very tight-lipped, I just keep asking questions, and they give me information that they might not have otherwise given, whether it's a divorce or a death, or it's just they got relocated to some other city. And I think if you're really listening and being intentional and purposeful about listening, you'll find out exactly what's important to them or what they have to have. In certain situations, you have to be creative. We're always looking for that next little tip to help our clients out and win the deals. One of the techniques that we've used a lot that's worked well for us is the escalation clause. For example, if the property is listed at $250,000, we might go in at $250,000 with strong terms, and in special stipulations, we might put in there that we're willing to beat the next best documented offer by $1,000 up to $263,000. And the best offer might be $261,000, so we end up getting it for $262,000. From a client standpoint, be willing to have a real conversation with your clients. It's not us just being realtors for them, it's us consulting and advising and really telling them, if you really want this property, here's what you have to do to get it. Everybody's got a different way of how they would negotiate. And networking with other Keller Williams agents around the country, the more you hear it, the more ideas you get. And then you end up gearing it towards you and what you think is going to work best for you and your client. A lot of it comes down to experience, and I think the more deals you do, the more comfortable you get with it. If you can step back from every transaction and learn something, you're going to get really good over time.
All right. What were some of the takeaways you guys had?
If you write,
Go ahead.
if you write an escalation clause in such a way that we're going to beat the highest offer by $1,000, does that really work in real life? Because it's kind of on the honor system, right?
So so the escalation thing was something that I used to hate. Yeah, it is kind of on the honor system, but not necessarily. So I disagree with him on one point on this. I used to disagree with escalations in general. Here's my reasons why. If you were to send me an escalation as he described, couldn't the seller just counter back at the top of the escalation? Anyone?
Don't you usually put something in there about it being some way to prove it's a verified offer that you've received to escalate above that?
Yes, they do. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit and go or talk about contracts. So if you write an offer on a property and the seller, you have to counter to establish on an escalation anyways. So what is a counter offer?
Or the seller doesn't refuse the offer, but they come back with like a compromise on the terms.
Well, officially, if you're countering, you are rejecting the offer. But then you are presenting a new offer back to them. So if somebody sends me an offer with an escalation and I have to counter anyways to honor that escalation, what's to prevent the seller from just countering however they feel like it, such as just countering at the top of the escalation without proving anything?
I would say nothing, but I think if this is just my opinion and I'm pretty new, but I would think that their agent also would hopefully be guiding them a little bit, because an appraisal still has to happen and it still has to be approved for a certain amount. So that's a little bit of a concern, I would think, just throwing out these extremely high numbers and people getting really greedy, but your property still has to appraise for that amount. So that might be like a slight saving grace for some buyers out there.
It does. So, I mean, so up until recently, I would have said if I was presented with an escalation, I would have just countered it at the top as a seller's agent. And here's my reason. From a seller standpoint, it's kind of weird to have a buyer come in and say, well, I only want to pay this, but I'm willing to pay this, but only if somebody else also is willing to pay this. It doesn't necessarily sit right, but what's changed my opinion on this is we're no longer talking about 10,000 over, 20,000 over. We're seeing things go 100,000 over. And as a seller, what we were seeing when people are asking for highest and best, most buyers agents are figuring out what a normal winning offer is in any given market. And what we were seeing is that all the offers were coming in at whatever that amount was. So if you listed it at say 400, and everyone knows that the winning offer typically is 20 to 25,000 over, guess where all the offers are coming in at if you ask for highest and best. Now, this is the one time where I'm actually thinking that escalations could get your seller more money, because if people are trying to guess what the number is, they're going to guess hopefully as low as possible in order to win it. And so if everyone is doing highest and best, then it's just trying to randomly figure out that number. But now with allowing escalations on it, you're really letting the buyers tell you what their top dollar is, and you might be able to get better than the highest and best would have been. Does that make sense what I'm saying there? Before, I didn't think it was the case because I thought people were using them as a way to try to minimize how much they had to go over. Now I'm seeing it as everyone's going over, and escalations might make them more comfortable even going higher because they're truly going all in, and then some. So it's something to keep in mind. Asking lots of questions of the clients and the co-op agents. So this is important, that you don't know what the competition is if you're not communicating with the listing agent. So it is, you want to try to get information while still being respectful. I've heard listing agents struggling right now because buyer's agents will start calling them the day that it goes on the market and then blow up their phone every day asking for updates as to how many offers are on the table. And that's not really fair to do, and that's not going to put you in the best light with the listing agent too. There is at some point you have to actually write the offer and present your client's offer. And I'm sorry, I keep talking to you guys as if you're all buyer's agents and stuff, and I know that that's not necessarily the case, but most newer agents as they're coming in do typically work more with buyers, and we're in probably one of the most challenging markets right now out there for buyer's agents, just so you know. I don't know if you've heard that or not, but here's the thing that works well for me. Be friendly. Call up the other agent and just be friendly and talk with them. It's amazing how much information you can get out of somebody just by calling them up and seeing how everything's going and being nice. I have won so many deals just by calling up confidently, talking with them, and saying, "Where do I need to be?" Uh, just direct asking the question, where are we at? Where do I need to be? You'd be surprised how often they'll tell you. And if they like you, they're going to want to work with you on the transaction. So again, if they like you, they're going to tell you exactly where you need to be in order for them to be able to work with you on it. So it really does matter. Okay. Please don't only text or email the listing agent. The rapport is necessary. You have to have that rapport with the listing agent in order to get under contract at this point in time. Again, if you send over an offer sight unseen without ever even letting them know that it's coming, expect that it will go likely in the trash unless it's the only offer they have. All right. So some of the things, some of the tips that were offered on that video, we talked about escalations. At this point, I would never offer a 1,000 over escalation. It seems petty. Make it worth their while. If you were to offer me only $1,000 over on an escalation at this point in time, I really would more than likely consider what the lower offer was, because it just doesn't seem like you're really wanting to go that much higher. If you make it at least 250, or sorry, it depends on your price point, but I believe we're all in decent price points in all of the areas that we're in. It would be a minimum of 2,500, if not 5,000 over, depending on the size of the escalation that you're going. For $1,000, it really isn't going to make me choose that offer over the one below it. So, and I'm going to go into real life situations here shortly, but we won like a dual escalation one because we had better terms than the other one, and they were only offering 2,000 above us, and so they actually left 15,000 on the table because of the rest of our terms. So we'll go through that more in detail in a little bit. All right, let me see. Do you guys have your packets? So it feels weird if I share the screen, then I don't get to see all your faces. If I just follow along and say what page I'm on, is that better than me sharing the screen? Yeah, different? Okay. I'd rather see your faces than share the screen if you have your packets. If you don't, does anyone need me to share the screen? I'm happy to do so if you need it. Okay. All right, so I'm on page 12. Above all else, be professional. This is where it's important. Be respectful, be professional to both your clients, the other side. It's weird noises coming from my computer. I can't tell if you guys are chatting, sorry. The goal. Remember what the goal is. So if you are not under contract yet, what is the goal that you are trying to work on?
Get under contract.
Get us under contract.
Okay. Once you are under contract, what is the goal that you're trying to work on?
Get to close.
There we go. All right. If we are, so yes, the ultimate goal is to get to close. And there's a lot of steps that have to happen to get to close once you are under contract. Obviously, your buyers are buying a house that they think is in a certain condition. If that doesn't end up being the case, then we have to make all the parties realize that it wasn't what we thought it was, and we need to adjust the terms in order to get it to close. Because in all honesty, the seller wants to get to the closing table as much as the buyer does. And so everyone wants to be there, but everyone wants to make sure that they are getting a win-win situation. They're okay with other people also getting what they want. It's not like a win-lose thing. Everyone doesn't have to be fighting with each other. Like the buyer doesn't have to win and the seller doesn't have to lose. Everyone can be happy at the end of a deal, which is more fun. This is one of the most important things. Our role as realtors has changed dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years. We used to be like controllers of the information, right? We had the listings. If you wanted to buy a house, you had to go through us because we were the only ones that knew which houses were for sale, and it was how big our network was how valuable we were to the sellers and stuff. So, and same thing, our access from a buyer's agent standpoint to those listings was how valuable we were to the buyers. We are now more professional guides to get somebody from point A to point B. So I really want to impress upon you, it is important that we alleviate anxiety in the transaction and not create it. Our job is to make it as smooth and enjoyable as possible process for our clients to do what they hired us to do, either to buy it or sell it. So our job is to not create drama and not create unnecessary tension between the parties. Our job is to make it so it's a good and smooth transaction for everybody. I know that when I was newer, I wanted to win at all costs. But so there's a downside to doing so, especially in the towns that you're working in. If you gain a reputation for doing underhanded or not great tactics, it will follow you, and the likelihood of you getting your next client under contract with that agent or within that office goes down dramatically. Okay, so just remember your actions are both for your current client, but also for your future clients. So you need to make sure that you are doing what's right for everybody. Yeah, so it says if you create anxiety in your clients or other parties, you are reducing their leverage in negotiations. That is completely true. The calmest person, the one that talks less and lets the other people speak first, usually wins. So listen, let them talk. A lot of times they're going to offer you more than what you wanted, or they're going to tell you that you didn't need to offer as much as you thought you did in order to secure the deal. So. Continually refer back to the motivation. So if you are working with buyers and they said that they really want to get into a new place within the next 3 months, but then when you're out there shopping for houses, they're saying that they want to go in at list or 5,000 under or 10,000 under, even though there's multiple offers on the situation, remind them and get them to refer back to their original motivation and see if that's still their goal. Because it might have changed. They might have said, okay, now I want that deal. And then you have to reevaluate if that is something that's going to be successful or not. The next thing it says is don't reveal too much. Listen more than talk. I know I'm talking right now, but that's also because I'm teaching the class and most of you guys are on mute. But this is important. It is, you want to be friendly, but you don't really want to reveal what, like you never want to say, oh, my clients are willing to go 10,000 higher, you know? You want to let the other people kind of dictate. And then don't become attached to the outcome. This is important. If you can't be more motivated to have a successful transaction than your clients are. You can't create or force them to want it more than you. It doesn't work. I talk with people on our team all the time when they're in their, working with their first buyer, and the buyer isn't really motivated, but they're motivated and they want their buyer to be just as motivated as they are. And it doesn't work. They spin their wheels. Understand that if you need the transaction to happen, you are actually disadvantaging your clients. So you want to make sure that you are doing what's best for them, but that you aren't attached to whether or not it's successful, especially more than them. You might, I mean, it's really nice to get paid, but the second that you're putting your needs on getting that commission check ahead of your client's interest of whether or not they actually really want this property, it's going to turn that relationship sour, and it's going to lose you out on future business. So I do want to make sure that you guys understand that. It's easier said than done, though, huh? I love it. Everyone's on mute, so it takes effort for you guys to communicate back.
Hey, I'll jump in really quick to give you somebody else. But I haven't had the opportunity to use it yet. But one of the I thought was a really good piece of advice that I got from somebody in our office who has done this a lot, said when you're working with a buyer and you're trying to come up with that number and you're trying to, like you were saying, take it out of your hands, is to basically say to them, you need to come up with a number that if you get the house, you're not going to be sick. And if you don't get the house, you did everything you could. That was what you were willing to go to. And you'll be okay with it. And I just thought that sounded like a really good piece of advice, because it also, they have to come up with that number, obviously, right? So
absolutely.
And then it just makes them feel comfortable. And having bought a house myself, I think if somebody had said that to me, because we lost out on several, because you do get attached to it. And so that just makes you more comfortable feeling like, okay, if I get it, then great. If I don't, then I did what I could.
I agree. I am a firm believer, whoever gave you that advice gave you really good advice, because I actually use I have that same conversation with my buyers. We are literally looking at properties now where there is no rhyme or reason for the price that ends up getting the property. So it's literally having the conversation with the buyer saying, all right, so we know it's going to go for more than list. So what is that number that you would be okay with if you had to go all the way up there? And if it was to go past that number, where you would say, I'm out.
Yeah.
And it's important to know that number, because I also say, is this the house that you would like to have or that you have to have? Because that also changes that number, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these, again, it's weird. I've taught this class for 2 to 3 years, and this is a very different conversation than I've ever had with any of the other classes. Most of your negotiations are with your own client right now, because it's literally trying to figure out, what is your pain point? Is the pain point of missing out on this house greater than the pain of overpaying for it? Because you are going to overpay for this house. That's the reality. There is no deal right now. This house is being bid on by 5, 10, 20 other people. So if you want to have it, what is the highest dollar amount that you are comfortable paying for it in order to secure it? And that's kind of what you have to have that conversation and let them determine it, because what you don't want to have happen is 6 months later, when the market corrects itself, them coming back at you and saying, wow, you made me way overpay for this. So they need to own the number.
And I have a quick question.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on, so for my buyers, basically they just sold in January, they're in a good position because they have quite a bit of cash in the bank. They did well on their house. They're staying with somebody, so they're not in a hurry. But what we're finding is, you know, their limit's like right under 700,000. And what we're struggling with is that they want land, but not too little and not too much. And then they want, you know, their kids are almost out of the house and they're really young, but they don't want a giant home. They want a smaller home. And it's like, anything that is even remotely available that they're even slightly interested in, like it's becoming to the point of like they're gonna have to take off work to rush to this house to see it. Because like the other day we just had one that we were scheduled to see, and the agent popped up a message before we went saying, you know, all offers due at 4. Our appointment was at 4. I called, tried to do my best, be super nice, tried to still get us out there, anything. And she just said, nope, we already have 3 solid offers. We're taking a pick from what we already have. Sorry, too bad, which is well within their right. But so now that we've experienced that, unfortunately, I'm going, okay, you might have to leave work if there's a house you love because of the lack of availability. So now they're kind of sitting there banking on the fact that spring's coming. They think all these homes are going to be listed and they're going to just like,
sure hope so.
Right? They think they're going to have like a ton of homes to pick from. In your opinion, I know no one can predict that, but I mean, do you think that's realistic over the next 4 months that all of a sudden we're going to have like an insane inventory? And
No.
Yeah, okay. I would say, and it's hard because I know no one can predict that, but, and then I'm on the other end where I'm about to list my own personal home, but I have to wait till June. And so, you know, I'm kind of hoping that we're still in this territory for myself, but on the other hand, for my buyers, it's not good. So I'm just kind of wondering like the prediction and where we should be looking as agents on really having a great idea with everything going on right now, to get our information on where the market might be going. Like, where's your most accurate information coming from?
Have you guys watched the vision speech from last week?
I have not.
Okay. Your market center should at least give you the slides for the vision speech, and so there you should be able to get some idea of what the national market's been looking like. I know KWSC did post it on their private Facebook group and sent out an email. I would just ask your team leader or whatever market center you're at to see if they can hand out the vision speech. And if not, is it Mara? I can't remember how to spell it. Or how do you pronounce her name? Mara?
Mara, yeah.
Mara. Ask her and she can get it to you also if your market center doesn't have it. It again, though, those are negotiation conversations that you're having with your client, right? It's also when you're working with buyers, where does your first like set of expectations come from? Like, when is the first time that you actually get to have a conversation around expectations?
I was friends with my buyers and she's really forward and she's going to tell me what she wants and how she wants it done, whether she's selling or buying. So from the very first conversation we ever had, she laid it all out. So for me, it was simple. Like, I let her know she's the boss. I'm just basically facilitating and guiding the transaction, and, you know, I'm going to make it smooth for her. But my client was my last client was definitely very assertive and set all the rules from the very get. So
did you have a buyer's consultation with each one of them?
I did not need to. Well, she was my seller. She's going into buying, and they reached out to me right before I got I'm licensed out of Washington, but right before I got my Oregon license, and said, hurry up and license. I want you to list my house. So I did. And then all along the way of listing her house, we've been looking for what she's wanted, but that shifted, I would say, over the course of the last month or so because of the market. And so I feel like they're kind of looking at things that aren't what they thought they were going to be able to find, because they are, you know, I think when they're living with somebody else, although it's a great scenario and they're stacking cash, they're also having other people in their space. So they're kind of considering things they might not have before. So it's like changing for me. Like every house we go look at, you know, they're willing to put it in offer, but then it's kind of like something comes up, they find something out, now they're going a different direction, like maybe land and building. And so for me, it's ever changing, which is a little
But
different.
they're all over the place right now.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
That's super fun. So they haven't dialed it in yet. So you're still working with them.
Yes.
I let everyone know, every buyer, and I mean, hopefully you guys are in this business for a long time and you'll do this a lot of times. But understand that your clients, they don't do this very often. So especially on the buyer side, they're going on a journey and you're their guide. So you have to let them lose out. I think it was important for them to, oh, cool. I see that. The vision speech is in your links. Thank you, Zoe. You have to allow them to miss out. So they liked the house. They wanted to go see it. They probably didn't want to get off work to go see it. And by the time that they were able to go see it, it was gone. What do you think that's done to their motivation if the next house comes up that they want to have a chance at? Do you think that they might take off work if it's one they really want?
Well, and I even suggested to my client, I said, hey, the next time something comes up you want to look at, why don't you and I run and go look at it? If your husband cannot take off work at that moment, that's fine. But at least that way that can either rule it as a positive or a negative. We can put it in offer contingent, you know, upon your husband seeing it at 3 p.m. that day. I mean, it gives us options versus just waiting and then it may disappear. So
agreed.
Yeah,
now I don't like doing double work though. So but you need to do what you need to do. So if you have one client that can go and the other one can't, at least it's important for them to put their eyes on it, because we all know that houses look different in person than what they do in their pictures. Especially with all of the professional photography, we can make houses look really good now that really aren't. So it's important for people to get that feel that you only can get by going and looking at it in person. If only one of your clients can do it, then that's what is likely needed to happen. Someone else said something.
I just wanted to add, I'm speaking, but Zoe and I are in the same room. So
I was like, wait a second, you're muted. How, this is confusing to me. Okay.
So yeah, we're a team.
Okay,
yeah.
awesome.
So I wouldn't call it a solid buyer, but someone that we've been talking and networking with has said, you know, maybe it's time to find that lake house. Maybe I'll find something, you know. And then we set them up on a drip. And so she's been looking at stuff, but we've been focusing on, you need to get pre-approved. That's the kind of market it is. And the classic example of what you said is we get an email saying, I just found this one on Zillow for $300,000. It looks great. She hasn't done any steps to get pre-qualified or pre-approved. And in the private remarks, it says accepting offers on the 26th, which is like 2 days from now. And so our initial reaction was, sounds great, but they've got 2 days where they're accepting offers. You really need to talk to a lender. The response back was, you know what, that's okay. Someone's going to enjoy it. You know, in the next year, maybe in a year or so, I'll start looking for properties. Right? That's like an instant slam back the other direction of,
yeah,
I'm not ready.
What is she telling you?
She's not really a serious buyer right now. I guess. Or she can't qualify.
Well, one of the two, maybe. That's also, that's possible. But so in that scenario, what should you do?
That's a good question. We were kind of stumped because she stopped responding to my messages, because we've been just Facebook messaging. We're kind of ex-coworker, semi-friends. And so I said, well, hey, here's the name of a local lender and maybe you can get in touch. I know she's really responsive to text messages. Maybe you can, you know, get started with the process and see where you fall. And then she didn't say anything back.
Yeah. So
what's a better way?
I was asking you. I mean, I thought maybe we should have just said, sure, let's go take a look at it to get her interested in buying a house, knowing she probably wouldn't get that one. But I don't feel like the seller was not going to take us serious if she hasn't even seen a lender yet. We don't even have a pre-qualification, let alone a pre-approval.
Yeah.
And she said it was the only house she wanted to consider. I asked her if there was other neighborhoods, and she said, there's no other neighborhoods. I'll check back with you in a year or two. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So I'd honor that she's pushing back. In this situation, what was it about the house that she liked?
Area and price, I think. 300,000 in the area she liked, which is tough to do in Eugene.
Okay.
You know, that's actually probably the most curious thing about it. The house itself is not really a looker. She said that it needed some love and somebody did some interior updating. So maybe a conversation with her to find out what she really loved about it would have been a good way to kind of intro and start, because in all honesty, it wasn't immediately obvious why she would want this house, location or curb appeal or anything like that. So she wasn't very specific, but maybe it's an emotional attachment she has for some other reason.
So did you, again, like, where have you had a buyer's consultation with this buyer, or is this just I like this house, I'd like to go see it?
Yeah, basically during our class on Monday, we had to make some phone calls. I called her up and she said, oh, well, actually, I've been looking at this house. I know it's for sale right now. And I'd be interested, but I haven't talked to anybody and I don't think I'd be approved. And so it was like since Monday that we were chatting with her, and
give her some space. I dial it back. You're the one that initiated the conversation. So I would tone down my eagerness, I guess, and allow her to come up to where you are.
I was thinking just bring her back to nurture stage, just kind of check in every once in a while, be friendly, kind of keep up the connection that we've had as friends and
absolutely just say, hey, I know that we weren't ready for that one. Here's another property that I thought you might be interested in. So I'd set up a search. Oh, great. We're having terminations left and right. It's been a good day. Once you get them under contract, then that second round of negotiations is sometimes it's best to terminate. We've had 2 today. Let's see. What was I saying? But in her situation, you want to kind of get her to the point where the goal should be to get to do a buyer's consultation. So send her occasional properties, find out how much she knows about the buying process, and then say, offer a reason why she would want to meet, where you can explain the buying process to her a little bit more. That was a different class. You guys did go through a class on buyer consultations, correct? Okay. And then, offer the lending as an option if she needs it, but be respectful. If she has a relationship with the lender, just say, if you don't know anybody, I'm happy to set you up with somebody. But if you have something, that's great. By knowing what you're qualifying for, then we can more accurately set up a personalized search, so that when another property comes up that meets your criteria, we'll be able to move on it really fast. And if you're pre-qualified, we'll actually be able to submit an offer that will be received in a manner that could get you to place. But right now, under this market, it just won't happen that way. With that being said, you have to start the relationship somewhere. So you are the one that started it. She's the one that said, I like this house. I would do anything and everything I could to show her the house. And so, and then go back and say, it didn't work out. But allow a beginning to the relationship.
Well, we've heard some people say that they won't show houses unless they've signed a contract with them, a buyer's agreement, just because of the fact that, it potentially is a waste of their time. And this is a very new process for us. So I don't think either one of us had really felt that was a sticking point for our business model. But what's your thought on that? Whether you show somebody that's just kind of looking around, hasn't talked to a lender.
I will meet it with
depends on how busy you are.
Well, I will meet it with the same urgency that they have. So if they say, hey, I'm kind of interested in this property and I have nothing going on that day, I might go show them the property just so that they are starting to associate me as their realtor. I am a big believer in buyer broker agreements. I think that they are super important, not necessarily because they're enforceable, because if you actually look at the buyer broker agreement, it says you can terminate it. Either party can terminate it at any time, right? So all it's doing is preemptively setting you up to have the conversation that says, hey, I'm your realtor. And unless you don't want me to be your realtor, I'll be your realtor. So if you see a house that you want to go see, guess who you call? You call me. And I'm the one that goes and shows it to you. You don't call the number on the sign. You don't call the number next to the agent that's on Zillow next to it. You say, you give me a quick text and say, I'm interested in this property, and I go show it to you. If I'm not available, I will find out or find someone else to go show it to you, but I will get you into that property and help you through it. So it's getting that commitment, it's having that conversation. It's the conversation that's important more so than the document. And if you find out during that conversation that they say, whoa, I'd rather, just call whoever, whoever can show it to me. I'm not really connected to anybody. Then you can also say, that's not quite how I work, but I wish you the best. And that way you're not spending your time on it. It's the conversation that's more important for both you and them to have. Does that make sense? I am a firm believer in those, though. So you keep hearing me go back to buyer consultation because of that. All right. So in negotiating, talks about being okay with being silent or staying silent. I don't know what this says. My notes are saying to talk about a certain transaction, and I don't remember what the transaction is, so I can't. I'm sorry. But being okay, being silent. This is so important. I sat on a call with a client. So this was, during the pair negotiations or even just negotiations getting to the final closing date. I was negotiating with my client to keep them in the deal. I sat silent on that phone for 4 minutes. We sat in silence. I actually timed it. Once everyone started having that awkward silence, I was like, oh, how long is this going to last? And so I actually kind of looked at the clock and started keeping track. And we sat silent for 4 minutes, knowing that she was mad and pissed off. And I knew that if I talked, she was just going to rip into me. So I just allowed her to stew in silence for a few minutes. And when she came back on, we moved forward and we got to the closing table. So be okay with being silent. All right. I'm on page 13 of my book. I don't know if it's the same. So common points of negotiation. We got price. Obviously, price is important, but then we have terms. Some of the terms, you won't know what terms are important unless you ask. Does the seller want a fast close? Do they need a long close? It might be better. I mean, they might want exactly what you want. So, but you won't know that unless you actually ask. Closing costs. Right now, if you are needing to ask for closing costs, you are at a significant disadvantage of getting your offer accepted. So this is where you want to make sure that you're asking your buyers, do you absolutely need the closing costs or do you want the closing costs? Because those asking for those closing costs might end up costing you the deal. I have had newer agents coming in on the team where they're writing offers with large down payments and asking for closing costs. Please don't do that. Do you guys know why?
Because aren't you suggesting that you could pay for it if you want to, you just don't?
Yeah, I mean, I've had people saying, well, we'll put down 60,000, but we're gonna ask for 5,000 in closing costs. Like on a $300,000 house.
I mean, I just feel like, shouldn't you probably not ask for basically anything as a buyer in this market right now?
Right, and maybe this was 6 months ago. I mean, we're not gonna be, this is a very unique few months that we're in. In fact, I'd even say few weeks. It's accelerated. It hasn't been decelerating. But lenders will say, well, you might be able to get the seller to pay for some closing costs. So this is also why it's important that you work with a lender that you trust, because if you're not controlling the conversation with the lender might be saying stuff that they don't understand is going to disadvantage your buyers. So I've had it where they're putting in, 25% down, but their lender said that the seller might pay for some of the closing costs, so they asked for 5,000 in closing. Just don't do it. Closing costs should only be asked for if absolutely necessary in order to make the deal go through. Otherwise, just lower the down payment. Okay. Conveyances. This is state specific. Who was dual licensed? There we go. Are curtains included?
I'm not sure on that. I've heard that they should stay if they are up, but then I don't know, because technically the curtains aren't attached either. So I don't know the answer to that.
Well, the reason I asked you specifically is because you're dual licensed. So in Oregon, curtains are not included. Curtain rods are included. In Washington, curtains are included.
Is there any difference between like literally just a hanging curtain that could go anywhere as opposed to custom window treatments that are obviously sized for those windows and everything, or no?
No difference.
Okay.
Well, and I would say in the area I came from, there's a lot of new, really fancy houses. So they all have the not so much window coverings, but they all have like the nice, beautiful blinds that are in the windows that I would say stay because they are fit for the windows, and most of them are custom done. I sold my house and I included all that, and that was a very expensive purchase for my home, but they were custom to the windows, so there would have been no point in me taking them with me anyways. It was kind of a package deal. But
blinds, I believe, are included. Curtain, so it's very specific to curtains and curtain rods. I believe blinds are included, but when in doubt, write it in. Okay. Earnest money or option fee. We talked about this before. What is the maximum earnest money you should ask for, at least in Oregon? I'm going to be Oregon specific on this. Or what is the highest earnest money you should offer if you're putting an offer down on a property?
10,000.
Yes. Why?
Because it will remain in small claims court if there's an issue.
Good job. Very exactly what I was looking for. So
I have never heard of that. Can you expand on that a little bit?
That is the limit on small claims court in Oregon. So if you have an earnest money dispute, say someone decides to put down 25,000 in earnest money, and then the transaction falls apart and there's a dispute over who gets that earnest money, guess where you're going? You're going to arbitration.
Oh, okay. So I was thinking of it as your minimum should be 10, but you're saying your maximum earnest money is 10.
Maximum should be 10.
Good to know.
How often do you see people actually go after the earnest money as far as like the sellers?
Every time that a transaction falls apart, a seller wants to try to retain their earnest money. And then you have to have the conversation and negotiate with your sellers. We really don't have the option of retaining it. Do you really want to be responsible for the legal fees when they come after you for what is rightfully theirs? So, but it's a conversation almost 100% of the time.
That's definitely interesting to hear that perspective, because I think this was, again, a personal experience, but when we sold our house, there were a couple of contingencies, or maybe only one. I think there was one contingency in there. It was a mortgage contingency from the buyer, but they gave us a 10% earnest money deposit that was, if I remember correctly, non-refundable. So perhaps maybe they could have revoked it somehow, but essentially, but what I guess what I'm getting at is, for us, it was like, okay, we understand they have a mortgage contingency, but they're not going to give up this amount of money, so we're okay with it. They're obviously very confident that they're going to be able to secure their mortgage, and there's not going to be a problem.
Yeah. Yes. So non-refundable earnest money is another fun thing.
Okay.
And that is something that has been, a lot of listing agents will request earnest money be non-refundable. When written improperly, it just creates a legal issue.
Okay.
So our network did put out a verbiage tool, or like, not tool, but verbiage, like about a 7-page document of different verbiages you should be using on the contracts. One of them did cover non-refundable earnest money. And it is important that you utilize that verbiage to make it so it's more likely that it will, things will transpire the way that you intended them to. And then repairs. Most offers are contingent on the outcome of home inspections and necessary repairs. So repairs are round 2 of the negotiations, correct? So once you get under contract, what was happening, especially in the investor world, understand investor, if you have an investor buyer buying something, so if you have like a duplex or some other investment type property, understand that investors behave very differently than owner occupant buyers do. So expect to get hit up really hard on the second round of negotiations, not the first. And sellers have gotten very smart about the fact that what was happening before is people were throwing whatever offer they could do to get it under contract and then hitting it up really hard under the inspection period, with the threat that they'll be back on the market and they'll lose that leverage of the new listing. And so people were hitting it up really hard. So now we're seeing repair waivers. So one of the tools that we've been using on our team is to buyer to waive any individual repair up to, and then you pick the specific dollar amount. I would not go anything lower than $1,000 on that. And again, it's any individual repair up to that amount. So that way the seller gets the peace of mind knowing that you're not going to be asking for a bunch of like $300, $500 repairs. You're not going to be asking for the furnace to be serviced. You're not going to be asking for grout maintenance or other caulking maintenance or even blown window seals, because each window only costs a couple $100. So it really is letting the seller know that unless it's something major that we are unaware of, we're buying the house as is. And so that is something that can get you moved to the top of the list.
I was wondering, are you seeing like buyer's remorse? I mean, because I think there's a lot of buyers out there, and especially like first time home buyers maybe, who are like really strapping themselves and putting everything out there to get into a home. You know, you've made it clear they have to go over, so they've gone over, and then you kind of get to the negotiation part and maybe they don't have the extra funds for things that are coming up. So then they're going, oh wait, like I am paying X amount of dollars over. I won the deal, that's great, but now how am I going to do all this stuff and pay these things? And then that's where it's getting like kind of sticky. Is that happening, or is it really more just like they've won the deal, they know what's going to go on if they want the house, they just kind of have to roll with it? How's that going?
It goes either way. So as I just mentioned to you, I mean, the buyers are going in all in with an expectation that the house is in a certain condition. So when and if it isn't, then they could be in a hard spot. If they were the only one that like really was bidding on the property, or if there was only like 2 offers on the property and a major item comes up, understand that you can ask for it and most likely get it. Especially if you ended up coming in significantly higher and with better terms than the second offer or the second best offer. But if there's 20 offers on the thing, the buyer is pretty much, again, you have to have that conversation. It was like, hey, this isn't ideal, but at the end of the day, it's still you that's getting the place. And then kind of managing, well, how, now that we know that this is an issue, how are we going to deal with that and when? And if at all. I mean, I ran into one that had some foundation issues. Well, we could ask for money in the form of a credit to deal with the foundation issues that will likely never be something that they need to deal with unless they sell the house. And then they could put that money towards the roof replacement or other things that might be more pressing. So again, it's managing it based off of the current situation that we have to deal with. Cool. Page 14, the 3 Ps approach: prepare, present, position. Know your goal. Have a clear goal of reaching a win-win agreement. Know your client. Make sure that you fully understand your client's goals. So that's where, again, your consultations are so important. Learn which areas they're willing to negotiate and which ones they're not. See, think ahead, anticipate what the other parties might want out of the negotiations. So this is where when you're going through and touring a house, you can identify likely problems that are likely going to come up, and you can have conversations. Are you okay with it being in the current condition that it is in or not, prior to even writing up the offer? And then if they end up getting it and that issue does come up, then you can have that conversation again and say, hey, we can ask for it. If they say no, are you going to be okay with that? And if not, that's okay too, for them to say, no, we're not okay with that. So, set clear expectations prior to meeting with the other party. Set clear and realistic expectations with your client, and then under promise and over deliver. That's always important. Be informed. It says to ask open-ended questions and use active listening. Active listening. Do you guys know what that is? No one wants to answer.
Maybe like asking questions to make sure you understand what they're saying.
Sure. I think active listening is one of the things that drives me nuts, actually. When somebody says, huh?
No, I was just doing it to you. I understand.
Oh, I understand. Yes. So if I understand what you're saying and then you repeat back what they said, it can be frustrating from the speaker's standpoint when they're repeating back to you.
So what you're saying is it could be frustrating.
I know. So, yeah. And then know your documents inside and out. This is so vitally important. You guys should all be going through the contracts class. If you are unfamiliar with the contracts, you need to know what is in them backwards, forwards, inside and out. It is so important for your clients to know that you know what you're doing. And it's important that you know what you're doing. So if you have a mentor and you're writing up contracts, make sure your mentor reads through that. If you have a principal broker, make sure your principal broker is reviewing it prior to sending it off. If you are able to get that, you don't want to put your clients in a bad position by missing an item on the document that would have protected them otherwise. So, okay, so this is where we're on prepare to negotiate. So I think this is a scenario, and are we breaking into groups on this? Sorry, I'm just trying to refresh my memory because I know we break into groups, but I wasn't sure if we're going to. So why don't we, on page 16 of your book, does anyone want to read the scenario here? And we can discuss it. I don't want to read it, so I'm going to just pause until somebody else starts reading.
From scenario on?
Page 16.
Yep. You are representing a single buyer. Your client is renting her present property. Like any first-time buyer, she is looking to you to guide her through the process. The asking price for the home she really loves is $175,000. The house appears to have evidence of a roof leak, is listed as is, and is correctly priced. Your client would like to keep her payments as low as possible since she still has a number of student loans to pay off. She wants to write an offer for $155,000. There has been quite a bit of activity on the listing.
Fun scenario, huh? If you had to rate this client, A, B, or C, what would you say this client is? I have chat open up now, so you can chat too if you wanted, if you don't want to talk. But she is definitely not an A client, just so you know. All right. So they say questions to ask the client. What are some possible questions that you could be asking this client?
Is this the house you'd like to have or have to have?
Okay.
What do you like most about this house?
Okay. Here's one. What if the seller counters with a full offer to fix the roof or counters with no repairs at all? They also said, what about the house makes it your favorite is another one. What is the likelihood of success on this?
Low.
No. 0 is probably accurate, yes. Yeah, I mean, this is a reality check. It doesn't make any sense to me. The property is newly on the market. There's been quite a bit of activity. It's priced appropriately based off of the current condition that it's in. She's offering 20 grand less because she wants to keep her payments low. There's so much about that this is wrong. And so this is where you would actually want to, like, this is where you're negotiating with your client to try to write an offer that would be received at all and stuff. So right now it doesn't sound like it would be. Does everyone agree on that? Yeah, okay. All right, so on page 17, present. Call the other agent to let them know the offer or counter offer is coming. This is so important, so important. If you don't do this, it removes all level of professionalism from you. And I mean, even if you don't get them, calling them and leaving them a voicemail and apologizing for, just say, I would have really liked to have talked with you before submitting this offer, but you know, please call me back if you can, but if not, I understand that you're busy. But I'm gonna send you over our what we think is our most attractive offer. If there's anything on the offer that you think we need to adjust, please let me know. That's a great thing. You are making an assumption that you're trying to do your best to write an attractive offer, but if is something that you wrote isn't desirable, you're asking them to let you know so that you can adjust it. So,
Our paperwork specifies or references e-edge, invite them into the buying loop and e-edge where they'll be able to view the offer contract. I know that that's outdated, but is there any comparable version in Command that you're aware of?
There wasn't even a comparable version in e-edge. So that didn't make sense. And I have it crossed off on my notes. So that was when we were using .loop, and I would never invite the other listing agent into the loop. They get to see everything. If that was the case, it just didn't make any sense. So, all right. So I crossed off the next two items because they don't pay attention. You don't present offers in person anymore. You have the right to, but you're not going to get that option. No one's going to agree to it. And then keep quiet once you present the offer. Again, you're not presenting the offer in real time where you actually get to keep quiet. So, I mean, there is a little bit of truth to that, though. If you write an offer and you're coming in and being fairly non-urgent in your offer. So if you're coming in with like a lower offer, don't come in low and then start hounding the listing agent every hour to find out if they received it. You need to, that perception of your position needs to be consistent. So if your client is writing 30 grand under on a property that's been sitting for, 4 or 5 months or whatever the situation is, write the offer, know that it might not be received well, and then be quiet. Don't check on it. Don't ask an hour before it expires if you're going to get a response. It is what it is. Make sure they got it. But besides that, as soon as you talk, if you talk in that last hour right prior, they might have been ready to agree to it, but then you speak up and say, are you guys going to agree to that, or are you countering? Well, you might end up getting a counter rather than an acceptance because you talked. So if you're coming in low, they need to want it more than you. And
what
so
if you have an anxious buyer that's asking you to check in all the time? How do you handle that?
I say I counsel the buyer. I was like, I can check, but do you really want me to, like, especially in a multiple situation? I'm like, I can check, but do you want me to be the needy agent or like tip off that you're going to be the needy buyer? It might hurt your chances of getting the offer accepted. And so it's managing them more so. Listen carefully to what is important to the other party. Do this before presenting the offer is what stay calm and relaxed. Always, always, always stay calm and relaxed. Focus on your customer's needs. Isolated objections on both sides, offer solutions that will satisfy the other party. So if they have an objection to something, then just isolate it. So if they like, oh, well, we really like the offer, but we don't like the timeline, say, okay, well, if is it just the timeline? If we adjust the timeline, is everything else okay? Yeah, great. And we adjust the timeline. That's that. And give your offer the best chance. Be confident and committed to your offer as you present it. Avoid indicating to the other side if you believe it is less than a great offer for them. So don't apologize for the offer. I have someone on my team who runs numbers on everything that he writes. And he gets into these battles with the listing agents on every transaction, trying to say, I don't know where you came up with your listing price. I know that you would like it, but I'm having it compounded this, and this is where we're coming in at. So he's doing it to justify his offer, but it just starts this battle going forth. But he's he's confident, and it's amazing. It's worked a bunch of times, but I don't know how it keeps working actually. But and then Keller Williams' belief: win-win or no deal. Remember that it should be a win for everybody. It doesn't mean that you have to lose for somebody else to win. It definitely can be a good deal all around for everybody. All right. Nonverbal cues. I'm going to skip the nonverbal cues because, again, well, did I? Okay. Or I guess nonverbal cues. What are some positive nonverbal cues if you're face to face?
Smiling.
Smiling. Yep. What else?
Uncross your arms, open body language.
You say uncross your arms?
Yeah, like don't, sit closed off, have more open body language.
Yep.
Nodding your head, leaning forward in the conversation.
Okay, good. How about some negative ones? You mentioned crossing your arms. Anything else?
Eye rolling.
Eye rolling. That's severely negative. If someone is rolling their eyes at you, you have gone past like a civil conversation.
I've got little kids, so I got a lot of eye rolling going on right now.
Okay. If you're working with a client and they start rolling their eyes at you, pause and be like, I noticed that you're rolling your eyes. Is there something you would like to tell me about what I could do differently? Sorry. All right, on the phone, positive. Steph, on the phone.
The sound you make when you are listening, you're like, mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that you're engaged, like they know you're engaged.
Okay.
I would say smiling on the phone as well. I mean, that's a big thing in customer service is smile while you answer the phone.
It works. All right, how about negative on the phone?
Yes, a lot of yes. People don't like that. They like yes.
Okay. Monotone, flat voice. I always answer the phone flat, just so you know. If I don't recognize the number, I answer the phone flat. That way I can go positive or negative based off of who they say they are once I figure that out. So just so you know. All right, let's move on. Identify tactics and using counter tactics. This is fun. So some of these things, who wants to read nibbling and read the definition of nibbling on page 19?
So just the action for nibbling?
Yep.
Okay. I'll read it. Once your client has agreed upon one major concession, the other party will start nibbling for additional smaller concessions.
Yeah. So ways of countering that. Anyone have any ideas? I can give you what they said. Stop nibbling from happening by nibbling back. Ask for concessions in return before agreeing to any further concessions. So if they ask for, like, if you've agreed on something and then they start whittling away at stuff, start asking for stuff back for everything that they keep asking for. Nibbling, I hate nibbling. I'll come to agreements. This has happened for me from an employer-employee standpoint, where I've had employees where we came to an agreement and then they start start nibbling away and asking for additional concessions or additional benefits. And I keep agreeing to them because they're minor, they're little. And then all of a sudden, like 5 of them later, I realize, wow, this isn't the deal that we originally came to. And I just blow it up and say, never mind, I'm no longer interested. So.
I call this the nibbling thing. I call it, if you give a mouse a cookie. If any of you are familiar with that book, my mom does this to me all the time. If I give my mom a cookie, she's going to want some milk with it. You know, it's like that continual process. So I'm challenged. I'm actually listening quite closely if anybody has better suggestions on how to nibble back.
Well, nibble back, I'd say use your active listening and repeat back. Well, it sounds like you want this additional things. All right, that's great. And I'm happy to accommodate that, you know, but why don't we talk about this thing? And then give a little bit on something that is important to you too, or ask for something that's important to you too. Hot potato. The other party tries to pass a problem on to you. For example, the co-op agent tries to pass all the closing costs to your client because their client can't afford them. So this was kind of in that original thing, the agent who wanted to keep her payment low. You know, in this case, the closing costs because the client can't afford them. Well, great. Increase the price then. So, I mean, if we're talking about just straight negotiations, if someone comes in at list and they're asking for closing costs on day 1, yeah, it's just not going to happen. So, don't let other people's problems become your problem is my take on that. It's just not your problem unless it is your problem. If that's the only offer that you have to deal with, then you have to deal with it. Try to figure out a solution that works for the best for your client.
I got into this when I sold my house and I had 5 over asking offers and I got suckered in because their agent was really smart and made me feel terrible because the girl's a school teacher and they were young and getting married and they like sold me the whole story and I completely ate it up and bought it all. And even though we still got over asking price, we were happy. I paid half their closing costs, although I didn't have to because she like tugged at my heartstrings. But that is definitely a lesson learned to not necessarily like read all the letters you get and go for all that because their agent was good and that totally like cost me money that I didn't have to pay, but we still got over asking, so I can't complain.
Letters.
I saw you roll your eyes, by the way, at that.
So. Did I roll my eyes at that?
You sure did.
I probably did. I actually am known for having fairly expressive facial expressions, and I don't hide them well. But that brings up a different topic. Buyer letters. Are you guys using them? Anyone?
We've heard just yesterday or the day before that sometimes they're good, but they're very, very kind of specific to write. Whereas we just heard from Family Reunion, NAR has a whole article about how you shouldn't ever either write them or allow your clients to write them, or if they do write them and they insist upon doing it, that you don't read them, you don't pass them along for them. But then somebody recently said they might write something.
Pass them along. If our clients insist on doing it, we have to act as we are their voice. So if they're insisting that we do it, even if we shouldn't, we are still responsible for doing it, or for passing it along. But yes, the short answer is buyer letters are a huge potential fair housing violation. So if you insist on writing a buyer letter, keep it specific to about the house. Okay. Your buyer's letter should not have pictures of your clients. They should not talk about them wanting to raise a family there, or other things like that. It really is dangerous to receive them from a seller standpoint. And so if you are representing a seller, as much as, oh, it said, do not help them draft or deliver it. Yeah, I don't know. If you, I mean, don't help them draft it, that's for sure. But
you just brought up something. I was always thinking how as a buyer's agent, you're putting yourself at risk by providing it, but it just clicked in my head. You just mentioned the selling agent, right?
oh yeah, no, it's not the buyer's agent.
Selling agent, they pick it and then, or don't pick it. More importantly, they don't select someone, or they do select someone. And then suddenly you've got a lawsuit on your hands saying they specifically didn't pick me because they knew I was XYZ.
Yep.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. So your seller picks a buyer based off of their letter that tugs at their heartstrings, and yet they had a higher offer from a more qualified buyer that didn't have that same connection. If that connection is based off of anything that is a protected class, it's a fair housing violation. And your seller and your seller could be on the hook for damages. So you need to have that conversation with your sellers. And even from the buyer standpoint, if your buyers are insistent of doing it, you need to make sure that they are avoiding all of the stuff in that could open up the seller, and let them know that not all sellers are receptive to receiving them, because it opens them up to fair housing violations. So it's our job to be counseling both sides that these things need to go away, because they definitely do continue to make discrimination in housing more frequent.
It seems like this is.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it seems like this is, excuse me, kind of a challenge right now, maybe. And like you were just suggesting, maybe if people can at some point kind of come to an agreement where they just don't exist anymore, because, if you've got 15 offers, and 14 of them do have a letter and yours doesn't, again, this is very anecdotal, but just speaking from personal experience, we did take into account a letter that we received from a buyer when we sold our house, and we actually ended up selling to them with a slightly smaller offer, because of what was in the letter. And granted, it was all about the house. It was that they appreciated the work that had gone into the house. So it takes sort of the fair housing piece out. But I guess what I'm getting at is, how do you navigate that right now, where it does seem to be just one more element that could potentially make a buyer more, stand out a little bit more.
Make sure that they know what is an acceptable letter, and one that could. I think we need to really turn the conversation. I mean, from a buyer standpoint, we need to let them know that we are in some ways being disrespectful to the seller by opening them up to having liability about this. So it should be a conversation, and definitely from a listing agent standpoint, we need to be counseling our sellers. You don't want these.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as much as you might want that somebody to tell you how amazing the house is, and you might want to know who is going to be living in your home after you're gone, you don't. The liability is too great right now. And there's a lot of bad. I mean, do we want to perpetuate something that is been we don't want to disadvantage somebody, and we don't want to be part of that problem. So All right, the last one was good guy, bad guy. It's like a cop show. Just call them on it. And so if that's the thing, I don't know. I've never really had good guy, bad guy happening. So, all right, I'm on page 20. Position, acknowledge, and affirm common ground. So this is, again, most likely happening in second round negotiations when we're talking about repairs. So at least in the current environment, because right now we're not really negotiating under first round. First round seems to be just securing the deal, not necessarily negotiating. So second round, that's where we want to affirm common ground. And then ask what and how questions to better understand the other party's values and why certain things are important to them. Yeah, that's just common stuff. So positioning is a process and sometimes requires you to come back to the negotiating table more than once. Several, or sometimes several counteroffers will be necessary to negotiate an acceptance. And then know when to walk away. So if you have, and let's talk about more hypotheticals because it's not always going to be current market. If you have a buyer that wants to come in significantly low on it, and they're just saying, well, let's just try it out, the seller is going to counter it up. What are some of the potential problems with doing so?
Losing out on the deal.
Losing out on the deal, but say you're the only offer. Say we're under a normal market where we are the only offer that's on the table, and the buyer's like, well, let's say the house is priced at 300. They say, let's go in at 225.
You could insult the seller and they could just not respond, and then you've now turned them off to any future offer.
Sure. You could get it just a flat out no, where they don't want to deal with you at all. Anyone else?
Do you think it could, I mean, maybe there are negotiations that happen and they get to a point where the price is something that they both agree on, but then going forward, like, you know, the seller won't want to negotiate on anything else because they understand that this whole process is probably going to be lowballing and maybe not worth their time, but I don't know.
Yeah. So you might end up winning round one, but remember you have round two still ahead. So if you go hard and all in on round one, you're likely going to lose on round two. So where you might have been able to get certain repairs negotiated, if you come in like where the seller gives everything up on that first round, they're not going to give any more. And then you might have something that is necessary to be done in order to finish and close the deal. And the seller's just like, nope, I'm not doing it anymore. I already gave it all. So that is one thing there. And then knowing when to walk away. You can't control who's on the other side of the conversation. There are no two identical sellers or buyers or listing agents or buyer's agents. You don't know what's going to work. So so say you have a property that you are looking at and your buyers say, well, the property should only be worth 350 and it's 400,000. It's been on the market for 4 months. So I'm going to come in at 340. They should be willing to take that. Well, the seller probably isn't necessarily reasonable. Just because you think the house is overpriced doesn't mean that they think it is. And you won't know until you actually do try to negotiate, but you need to be setting the expectations with the buyer that the seller might not be willing to negotiate. And they have to know that if they're not, that this isn't the right house for them. Okay. Let's see. Oh, this was kind of fun. So this was the difference between dealing with a corporate seller and a regular seller. So we bought an open door listing with one of our clients. I can't remember if this was last year, like 2019, or when it was actually. So I'm not unsure where my notes are from, but The open door price, we came in at 315 because the property was overpriced. It was at 335. They countered it at 332.5. And we said, nope, we're good. And we walked away. They came back at 320 and we ended up closing the deal. So be okay with walking away if that isn't the property that you have to have, because you could end up, the other side could just be testing it and stuff. And so it's important that you keep your calm and keep cool and be okay with walking away, and they might come back to the table. So that again is a corporate one where they don't get their feelings hurt as well, or as easy. All right, positioning. Let's see, it's 3 o'clock. Do you guys want to go through the scenarios, or do you want to go through some real life stuff on what has been working lately?
Real life stuff.
Real life stuff,
Real
okay.
life.
Okay, because yeah, I think right now we're up to the last things on here were different scenarios where you guys would group off. And how did you guys do grouping off on like this when you're supposed to break out? Doesn't happen?
Breakout sessions.
Yeah, she puts us in separate rooms. I don't know how that works though.
I don't know how that works either. So I don't know how to do that. So you think I even have a premium Zoom account. It only took me 10 months to get it. I had my team set up so that we would have 40-minute team meetings, and we'd have a second team meeting already on the schedule. And so whenever the time expired, we would just close out and go into the next meeting. I finally realized that I should just pay the money and have it done. Spend money well spent. Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, and so I can pull up specific properties. Maybe. All right. So this is one that was listed in November. All right. November 25th of 2020. Listed at $561,000. Okay. The funny thing is that November seems like a whole different century. Someone just came by and dropped something off for me. Than where we're at right now. It is a completely different market than we are in now. Even it was crazy in November too. So property went on the market. I think on a Thursday. It was being held open on a Sunday, and they were going to review offers on a Monday. I called them and asked if they would accept the escalation clauses. So that was the first thing that happened. As I said, will you guys accept escalation clauses? And in this case, they were not willing to do escalation clauses. So they said highest and best. Okay, so then we had to guess. So when a listing agent says highest and best only, then your only thing to go off of to try to figure out what an acceptable offer is how many, like what's the activity been on the house? How many people have put in offers? And then also asking what's important. We ended up coming in at 580 we waived any individual repair under $5,000. And we did a $50,000 appraisal waiver. Okay. So we said if the property doesn't appraise, we'll bring in up to an additional 50,000 to make it so it could appraise at 540 and we'd be, we would still proceed. Okay. So super nice agent, we had the rapport going on. And so I checked in on the date that they were going to be reviewing offers. So they were reviewing, I think, Sunday night. And so on Sunday, they had an open house, and I called at the end of the open house and said, how many people came through? How many offers do you end up having? And where do we stand? And then I was quiet, and let her talk. And she actually said, you have the best terms out there. So they liked the fact that we had the repair waiver and they loved the appraisal waiver. But we weren't the highest price. So then what was my next question? I'll be quiet.
Where do we need to be?
Whoa, someone listened. Where do we need to be? I don't know if you heard that from earlier or not, but yes, where do we need to be? I said, if we come up to 590, does that get us the house? And she's like, I think that would get you the house. It's like, great. I'll get you. I was like, let me talk to my client and see if I can get you that addendum. Called the client. I said, do you want to go up to 590? If you go up to 590, it's likely yours. She thought about it, said, yes, I do want to go to 590. We did. She got the house. So that was, again, a very important, because the listing agent was willing to tell me exactly where we needed to be in order to get the property.
Out of
Did
curiosity,
the appraisal come in? I'm curious.
Yeah.
Oh, did the appraisal come in?
Yeah, it came in fine.
Good. I have a question. Like, so if you do the appraisal waiver and they need financing, what supersedes like the money coming in? Is it the lender, or is it that? I guess it doesn't matter, right? Because they have to come in with it.
Well, we waived $50,000 of appraisal, so we would cover up to a $50,000 appraisal shortfall.
Got it.
So that's where you have to have the conversation with your client. How much additional down payment would you be able to come up with in order to make this continue to go through? And you want to coordinate with the lender to find out if the appraisal came in low, what were the options? They might be able to lower their amount of down payment. They might, instead of doing a 10% or down, they might be able to reduce it down to a 5% down and still make it go through.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Someone else was talking, I think. No? All right. So that was number one. This was in an amazingly hot neighborhood where properties do not come on the market very much. And they're always competitive. So let me go on the listing side here. Helps if I type it correctly. All right, so here's a listing that we had. This property is newer. It was built in 2000. You guys are lucky that you're not having to adjust to new format, just so you know.
I think it was at the top, 2016, or is that?
Where did you see that? There we are.
Yes.
Thank you. They changed the formatting. Here's what I'm used to. This is what they used to look like. So they've changed it all around. So I'll go back to this one. So in this situation, it was built in 2016, as you just said. So it's a couple years old. There is still new construction being built in the area. And so our comps were very few resale properties and mostly new construction. So new construction was starting off for similar type properties at around 525 for base. Okay. So that means that they're probably more like 535 or 540. Plus, what's another disadvantage of new construction? Not necessarily immediately available. So it could be out 6 months out. So we were looking for those new construction buyers that might be at the top of their price point, and they need something sooner than what they could get, because most new construction is being sold now, at least up here, prior to foundation pouring. So you're looking at 4 to 6 months before move-in date. This house had some challenges. It was on a little flag lot that most people didn't actually care for. And so when we came on the market, we priced it low, knowing that we were competing against new construction. So we wanted to make sure that it was appropriately priced there. And then we also knew that we had to account for this odd little driveway thing and being in this weird little private drive. So we priced it in a way that we were going to bring a lot of people in. So we had a ton of people show up all weekend long. We were fully booked with showing after showing after showing after showing. And at the end of the weekend, we had 3 offers. 2 of them were for less than ask, and 1 was for asking price. So this was obviously a disappointment for the seller, because they're thinking everyone else is getting way over list price. Why we already priced it low, and now we're just having to sell it at list price. We're not getting over list. So it was a hard pill to swallow. They were hoping for better. But what does that tell you? We had a lot of showings and only 3 offers, and none of them were willing to pay really more than what the list price was. Right? So this is negotiations with the seller, because she wasn't super pleased. So what happened is we accepted one of the offers. We ended up getting another offer at the 11th hour, like as we had already accepted one of them. That was $2,500 less. And what ended up happening on the first round, we had the inspection on the first one, and they discovered a bunch of issues with the house. That was the other thing. The house had a bunch of issues. So the original buyer terminates based off of the inspection, because they didn't love the house as much as they thought they were going to. We were able to get it back under contract with that last minute person. They were able to come up to list price. So we got an identical offer from a second buyer. That was, again, due to negotiations with that other buyer's agent, letting them know, hey, I know you were interested. I know you were disappointed that you didn't get it. Here was the issues that came up with the previous house there that they weren't comfortable with. Are you comfortable with it? Do you want to have an opportunity to slide into that? Or do you want us to go back on the market and you guys might not be able to get this? So in this situation, it was negotiating with the buyer, letting them know all of the issues with the house. Do they want to secure it before it becomes competition again? Because who knows, the next round, we might have more desperate buyers that are willing to bid up and and buy more, right? So that was negotiating with a less than desirable or universally desirable house, and how that differs. Even in this hot market, there are properties that just don't garner that massive amount of attention and frothy competition. So let's see. I'm going to show you one more example. All right, so this one, much more competitive price point, $350 for a detached house in Forest Grove on over 1/3 of an acre. How much attention do you think this house got? The answer is it got a lot of attention, just so you know. So we are working with buyers on this one. Tons of like competition on this. This time, a call to the listing agent, they were willing to accept escalation clauses. So in this one, when we were writing the offer, we had waived $5,000 of repairs, or $5,000 of individual repairs. We couldn't do an appraisal waiver on this one, but we did do an escalation of up to $385,000, where we would beat any competing offer by $2,500. We also had $60,000 down on this one. Super highly competitive. We ended up beating out another offer. So we did end up paying $385 for it. But there was another offer with an escalation that started at $380 and went up to $400 that was willing to beat us by $2,000. So in this situation, the sellers recognize that this house is from 1940 with a lot of issues, and really valued the fact that we were not going to be asking for any small repairs, because it was more likely that they were going to end up getting the highest net from us than the other one. And they knew that we were likely going to run into appraisal issues on it. So the likelihood that we had the larger down payment meant that we would likely be able to make up for that. So that was kind of, those are some situations where we've won recently and some of the tools that we utilized. I don't know. Anyone have any questions or thoughts on any of that stuff, or want to discuss any of it?
I have a quick question. Oh,
Sure.
sorry. It would be your
Not hearing you. You're on a.
to let that.
Sorry, your connection's not good enough.
Can you
We're
hear me
not
now?
hearing. Huh?
Okay, no problem. Forget
Oh,
it.
wait. It seems clear
Oh,
now.
that's okay. Can you hear me
Try
now?
again.
Okay, so regarding the buyer letters, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh crap, forget it. Oh, sorry. Oh, would it be okay for us, if we're representing a seller in a listing, to let the buyer's agents know does not need buyer letters
Yes. You can put it in the
when they're
private
submitting
remarks.
offers? Okay.
Put it in the private remarks, say seller,
Thank you.
seller does not want any buyer letters due to potential fair housing violations. Please do not submit.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Are you doing that on yours or no?
We have not. But if anyone asks if we want them, I usually say them. But it's probably best practice, and you'll start seeing it more often to actually put it in the listing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Abigail, were you wanting to ask a question or a discussion?
Oh, it might be a dumb question, but I am curious. Do you find that there's a lot more competition in a certain price range of houses?
Yeah. Yeah. Anything up to 500 in the Portland area right now is just super competitive. Anything under 400 that is detached is just insane. I mean, and so in each of your markets, there's a specific price point that you're seeing, but there really is not. There is so few properties that qualify anymore underneath 400,000 that are detached at all inside the Portland metropolitan area. So when one comes on, it's usually going for 30, 40, 50,000 more than list. All right.
Oh, sorry. I just have a quick question. At what point do you feel like if houses are going for 30, 40, 50,000 more than their asking price, when is it kind of like a red flag when it comes to like the appraisal portion of it? Like at what point do you as the agent look at the house and go, the appraiser is probably going to call this, it's not going to sell for this? Or is it like we keep learning it's what people are willing to pay? But how does that really work? I mean, how do you handle that situation?
Well, that's why a lot of the sellers now are requesting some sort of appraisal waiver or ability to bring in additional, because right in the last few months, especially, appraisers are starting to push back because especially on the lower end when you're looking at some of these houses and what they're going for, it's kind of shocking. And the appraisers are like, I can't justify the value. And then the transaction falls apart. So it's setting expectations with everybody is probably the most important. I mean, you can try it. I mean, that's another thing. When you are in a multiple offer situation and your buyers are worried if they're overpaying, let them know that there is an appraisal that's going to happen on the property, and the appraiser has to verify that the price is substantiated in some way. So at least from a buyer standpoint, they can have their mind set at ease a little bit, knowing that somebody else is verifying that this is the true market value at the time.
So Matt, kind of extend that, when you go then to your seller and you're looking at listing, I'm guessing because not every agent's created equal, right? So some are going in doing their own little CMA, and are you finding that they're raising it up by 50,000, just assuming that's where they should price it? Or do you still find, I guess I should ask what you're doing personally. Are you pricing it the way a CMA looks today, knowing that it's going to get run up when all the buyers come and then let the market determine it? Or are you jumping in and telling sellers out there, hey, I think we can get X amount, let's list it that much higher?
So I do my CMAs very interesting. So I don't teach the CMA class because my CMAs are a list of agent fulls, and I handwrite all over them and adjust them. So I make the ugliest CMAs. I literally bring a stack of listings that I've scribbled on. I also have a very unique pricing strategy with my sellers, and that I let them determine the price that we sell it at. So I ask them, I when I'm doing the CMA, I give them a potential range of where it could fall and the likelihood of activity based off of where we are in that range. And then I ask them what's the price that they want to get from the house. And if it falls in that range, then I'm there to coach and guide them on that and say, hey, this is likely what we'll experience with this. If they want to go really high, I'm all game with that. I say, sure, we can try that. And we talk about as long as they are willing to move with what the market says. So if we go on the market, say I think it's worth, $350 to $375, but we're in a crazy market right now, and so they say we want to try 400 and see if it works. I'm like, great, we can try that. And if we put it on the market, one of three things is going to happen. One, we're going to get little or no showings. Two, we're going to get showings but no offers. Or three, we're going to sell the house. So if one or two happens, if we get little or no showings, we've missed the mark. Okay. So if we're not getting any showings, the market is telling us that we're overpriced. We need to make dramatic adjustment to the price in order to attract buyers to the property. If we're getting showings but no one's willing to offer, then we're close. We're in line with where we should be, but we're not quite there because no one's willing to actually put an offer down. And then the third option is that it's sold. So as long as we are evaluating what's happening with the market and adjusting based off of that, I'm willing to go at whatever price you're wanting to go at. So if we start at 400 and we get little or no showings, at the end of that week, knowing especially what's happening in the market, we're adjusting the price. So say it went at 400, we got very little activity on it. We're adjusting to 380, a week later and seeing how it reacts then. And as long as they sign on to that, then I'm good with whatever listing price that they want to go in on.
We had a previous class that suggested that when that happens, when you overprice a house, and then it doesn't sell or doesn't get the activity that you expect, that the time on market that happens during that adjustment period of the price being changed can actually, over some sort of data set that they had, would lose the money for if they had priced it correctly originally.
I agree.
Is your experience with that as well? So
I agree. You miss out on that
sellers that
frothy opportunity.
Do you talk to sellers about that aspect possibly?
Absolutely. So that's where the counseling goes. That's where I give the range of the price of what I think. But ultimately I want them to own the price. I don't want to give them a number. So I always let them tell me the number, because then they get to blame themselves for it, not me. I don't want to be the one where they come back a week later and said that you said that it would sell at this price. I don't want that responsibility. So I let them choose it.
I have a question, sorry. In regards to that, if you let them choose the price, but the house needs some repairs, are you going to say, sure, if you want to do it at that price, here's what you need to do to, get it up to par to all the other listings that are listed in this price? Or no, let them just fall on their face?
Well, no, because I'm guiding them through it. So I actually go through, and we do go through the process. And so when I'm setting a range for the listing with them, it's in current condition. And then we have a discussion. Well, if you were to want to do these type of repairs or to get it ready, then I think this would be the appropriate range. But ultimately, if they want to go with something that is within that range, or even without, or outside of that range, I ultimately will let them do it. So And then I just explained to them the likely rewards or consequences of that choice.
Okay.
So.
Thanks.
What were you about to say, Abigail? Says that is exactly what I was about to say, but I can't.
I was about to say, yeah, in a previous class we were in, she said, if you go in to like above what it appraises at or whatever, and then you don't get any attention, then you're going to lose out on that, like fresh on the market appeal.
Yes, I would say under normal circumstances, that is 100% true. I would also let you know that under current circumstances, that any listing that is on the market is going to get attention.
Even if it's just jacked up and like not in the right, like a manufactured home that's got a lot of issues, doesn't look good.
Well, you have to, you're naming like all of the negatives. No, most listings, I would say minus manufactured in park or minus condos, but any sort of detached property, you have a lot of wiggle room right now. Someone's going to want it. And if you adjust the price, even if it's a month old, we've had properties that have come on the market, or not we personally, but I've watched as properties have hit the market, went pending, came back on the market, went pending, came back on the market, went pending, back on the market, and they're still getting attention every single time they come back on the market.
A totally different market. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Just
right,
a question. That's not usually like normal, right? Like in a normal, healthy market, that's not a common thing.
Nope, it is not. But that is the market that we're currently in. So we are here to guide our clients through the market that we currently exist in, which is one of the reasons why today's discussion is nowhere near like what I talked about in previous years' classes on this. All right, well, there's no more material. So if you guys have questions for me of anything, I am happy to answer anything that you guys have. If you are all satisfied and want to go home early or get off of this early, I'm okay with that also. You're saying bye-bye, or are you raising your hand?
I was saying bye, thank you.
Okay, well, I have thoroughly enjoyed, meeting all of you and stuff. So I wish you the best in your careers as you're launching and stuff. And I hope that I will see more of you in your individual market centers as we are expanding throughout Oregon. So
thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
I have a quick question for you about Portland, if you don't mind. I used to live there. We moved here about 2.5 years ago. I'm curious, like what's going on with the values, like in the Pearl District and downtown area. All the
values are not being hit as hard as you might think, but there is definitely lower demand than there would have been previously.
Oh, okay. Is it pretty cleaned up now, or is it?
No.
I don't know.
No.
Okay. I know. I have like my super liberal friends are like, oh, everything was great, and then you have like naysayers that are like, oh, it's a disaster. So I'm like, I just want the truth.
It's not great. It's not great. Yeah. It's gonna, but it's not all. I mean, there's so many reasons as to why it is the way it is. Both,
sure.
I mean, both the protests and then, I mean, COVID has also caused a mass exodus from the downtown area. So people are leaving the city for multiple reasons. All of the reasons why people want city living are closed right now. So
I know.
There's a lot of the reason for the demand for wanting to be in the heart of the city isn't there. You're working remotely, so you don't need a quick walk to work downtown. The restaurants are closed, the theater is closed, all of the shows are closed. You can't go to the bars. I mean, so there is a pause, and it's going to be a few years before that downtown life really comes back, I would think.
Really, a few years. Interesting.
Well, yeah, because I think we are, I mean, you don't just flip a switch, the businesses,
Yeah.
a lot of them are gone.
Yeah.
And so it will take a while for them to
Oh,
come
true.
back. Yeah.
Forgot about that part. Okay, that's a good point. Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all and stuff. It was great. You all have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.